This video is about how we know whether or not triangles are congruent. Now for reference, on the right side of the screen I have listed the 5 postulates or theorems that we know or will soon learn in class. They're the side-side-side postulate, the side-angle-side postulate, the angle-side-angle postulate, the angle-angle-side theorem, and the hypotenuse leg theorem. If you remember the names of all 5 of these, most of your work is done. So let's have a look at this first example. So we want to know what information do we already have about the triangles. So the 2 triangles that you see in this picture, they have this side in common. This side that I'll draw the little green line through, that's a side in both triangles. That side is congruent to itself, so that's one pair of sides that we know. Now the 2 markings tell us that this is another pair of congruent sides. So we have 2 sides, and finally we do have one angle pair that's congruent. So we know that these 2 triangles are congruent by side, angle, side. Now it is important to note that this angle, the angle pair that's congruent in the 2 triangles, is between the 2 sides, and it is worth checking in both triangles. A common trick that geometry textbooks will give you is the angle will be between the 2 sides in one triangle, but not between the 2 triangles in the other. So side, angle, side has to be true for both triangles. And that's why these 2 triangles are congruent by side, angle, side. I'll erase my work and we'll look at another example. So this is usually the easiest one to spot. Again, we have a side that's in common in both triangles. We have a pair of sides that are congruent, another pair of sides that are congruent. So all 3 pairs of sides are congruent, which means the triangles are congruent by SSS. I'll erase this, we'll do another one. So here we have 2 right triangles. That's what the little square means. We have this side that's in common to both, and notice that this side is special. This is the hypotenuse of both triangles. Remember, the hypotenuse is the side that's across from the 90-degree angle. It's the longest side. So we have the same hypotenuse in both right triangles, and we have this additional pair of sides that's congruent. That means these 2 triangles are congruent by HL, which stands for hypotenuse leg. We have the same hypotenuse, we have another side, which is called a leg in right triangles. So that's how we know that those are congruent. Okay. Next. So we have a lot of information here. First, note that yet again we have a side that's in common. We have an angle pair with 1 mark, and we have this angle pair with 2 marks. So we have two angle pairs and a side. Now what I like to do is choose a starting point. So I'll start in this bottom triangle at this angle with 1 mark. So if I move along this side of the triangle, I'll hit the angle with 2 marks, and then I can move across the side that they have in common. If I go through the same motion on the other triangle, starting at the angle with 1 mark, down to the angle with 2 marks, then across the side, that's how I know that these 2 triangles are congruent by angle, angle, side. This is the order that I go in. First an angle, then another angle, then a side, as I travel around that triangle. Okay. Next, need to erase that. So next, we have 2 separate triangles this time. This one is also usually pretty easy to spot. We have an angle pair, we have another angle pair, and we have the side that's between them. So these 2 triangles are congruent by angle, side, angle. It is important that the side is in the same relative position. In this case, it's between the two angles. So that takes care of all 5 of our postulates and theorems. So let's have a look at an example where the triangles are not necessarily congruent to each other. So what happens is students will see the right angle and they'll immediately say, oh, this must be HL because that's the one that's true for right angles. There's even some extra information. We know that these 2 vertical angles are congruent to each other. So there's a lot of information in this picture, again, motivating people to choose HL. However, notice we don't have any information about the sides. Don't make the assumption that these 2 pairs of sides are congruent, or these 2 pairs of sides are congruent. Unless there's markings in the diagram or you have some other reason for knowing that the sides are congruent, don't make that assumption. So all we have here is information about the 3 angles. And then ask yourself, well, is AAA one of our congruency postulates? No, it's not. Later on, we'll talk about this in the case of similarity, but this doesn't say anything at all about the lengths of the sides. So there's not enough information in this diagram to conclude that the triangles are congruent. Anyway, I hope this helped. That's just a quick overview of our 5 postulates and theorems. See you next time.